All right, so we're going to go over the 2-page document, and you can see this reference down below, and you can download this document. This is just a reference for you to start with. This is what we use for our local shop, and you'll want to obviously edit this substantially in terms of the base pay, the percentage of labor revenue going to the employee, as well as you'll see a couple other edits we made specifically for our industry. So the first part, I'm just going to go from the very top of this 2-page document. We're going to just read through it together, and I'll explain each part as we go. Remember that this is the document you're going to go over during step 2 of the implementation process when you're talking to your employees. This is the document you will share. This is also the document you're going to make publicly available to all of your employees so they can always reference it when they are working. We laminate them and we put them next to our keys where all our truck keys are at. We put this up, hang it up, so that way people can always reference it and see what the rules of the game are. All right, so let's go to the 2-page document. We'll start at the top and we'll read right through. The objective of implementing P4P is to allow for high performers to be paid more. Low performers might make less and may leave. This creates a meritocracy by which the more efficient a team member is, the more they will be compensated. This aligns the goals of the company and employee around high quality, reduction of yellow slips or callbacks, and improved efficiency while removing a pay ceiling for experienced team members. This is the part at the top here is important, I feel, to express to your employees why you're making this change, as well as this next line, which is also important, so that way over time you can modify it if needs be, and that is the P4P system will be revised and added to on a continual basis to improve efficiency and fairness. We actually make the employees, when they sign up to be an employee, when they sign their documents, we require them to sign off on this document, that they have read it, they understand it, and it's part of their compensation agreement. All right, so for example, this is for mowing and for landscaping, but really at the end of the day, you could make this 1-day jobs versus multi-day jobs. Okay, so anything that is 1 day, can be finished in 1 day, would fall into this first group. Anything that is multi-day jobs would fall into this second group. So for us, mowing and maintenance jobs typically fall in the first category, the 1-day routes, and then the multi-day projects, big landscaping jobs, hardscaping, etc., fall in the second category. Okay, so for us, it's mowing. For you, it might be whatever, repairs, maintenance visits, a route of different jobs, whatever it is. For this one, we do 33% of labor revenue is paid to the team. For us, when it comes to mowing, we give 40% of labor revenue during the months of March, April, May, because it's very wet, rainy, and the grass grows really tall. So again, you can modify these based upon the seasonality of your industry. Number 2 is pay period compensation cannot average less than $18 per hour. That's basically our base pay is $18 per hour. And number 3, if a team member is training a new employee, $4 per hour will be added to their day as decided by this is where you insert your name, owner, manager. So again, that's our training bonus, and we'll talk more about the training bonus later on, but that is what is for 1-day routes, mowing routes, whatever you do in a 1-day period, either multi-jobs and stops, a route, or a 1-day project. Now when it comes to landscape, cleanups, large projects that take multiple days, 33% of labor revenue paid to the team. Again, we like to keep that number consistent. As much as possible, keep your base pay and your percentage of labor revenue going to the employees, keep that consistent across employees, across services, as much as possible. You want to reduce the changes and the edits and the modifications in the system. Make it simple, simple, simple. All right. Number 2, again, we have base pay of $18 per hour. When it comes to number 3 here, jobs at or over 49 budgeted hours will have a $1.50 per hour bonus. Now, for us, 48 hours is important because that's 3 days for 2 guys. Because if 2 guys are on a job for a day, that's 16 hours, 8 and 8. If they're there for 3 days though, that's gonna be 48 hours. Anything that's longer than that in our industry, and for us, is considered needing a project manager. It needs someone to really oversee the whole project because it's pretty big. You need someone to be able to be accountable for the walkthroughs with the customer, making sure that materials and equipment shows up on time. So in that case, we need a project manager. Therefore, we give, again, this is just us, $1.50 per budgeted hour. So what that means is if we have a 100 budgeted hour job, it's obviously over 49. So therefore, we're gonna be giving project management bonus of $150 on that project. Now, that might go to one person or the entire team that was on that project, as we'll see here in a second. It says this will be 100% subject to how the office manager, is where you insert your name, wants to divide the bonus. This will be based upon who managed the job, loaded materials early, communicate with the client or office. So whoever is kind of managing the job, they get that bonus. What that means is, say there's 5 people working on that 100-hour job, and each of them put 20 hours into that job, 20 hours worth of labor. The person who was the project manager theoretically made $150. They worked for 20 hours on the job, which means they made about $7.50 extra on top of what everyone else made. This is how you're able to retain your most experienced employees, is by having a project management bonus for specific services, specific jobs that are bigger, that require more skill, perhaps more equipment. They need to know how to use a certain piece of equipment. I don't want to change my percentage of labor revenue. I don't want to change my base pay. What I want to do is compensate them using the project management bonus, because that project manager is usually going to have the most experience. They're going to have the most time on the job. They're going to be the one that's been at your place of business the longest. It also allows an opportunity for new employees to grow their wages by simply being able to manage these jobs that are larger. That requires you to trust them. That requires them to be able to communicate with customers and know and plan and schedule the job. It's also because this project manager is probably going to be coming a little bit earlier to the shop, getting things ready, getting materials ready, and they have a plan in place. They're the one talking with the customer, communicating with the office about work change orders. So that money, as we talked about here, can be split up though evenly. If you have 2 people on a job and they both kind of shared and split the responsibilities of project manager, then they absolutely could get $75 and $75. That would be just fine. And furthermore, if you want to create even more of a difference between the project manager and the laborers on that job site, you could simply increase the amount of money per budget hour that is given as a project management bonus. So instead of $1.50, you could use $2 or $3 or $4 per budgeted hour based upon your type of work, your line of work, and if you're needing a kind of a foreman, someone with lots of experience versus the frontline staff. That way you can keep your base pay and your percentage of labor revenue constant for all of your employees, but still allow the most experienced, the ones with the most skill, to make more money. Now, number 4 says that if a multi-day job runs into a second pay period, it runs over the pay period end date, hours will be paid out as at base pay. So after a job is completed, that's the only time that performance dollars are allocated. So you've really got to finish the job in order to know how to split up all the money between different employees that were on a big project. So therefore, if a pay period ends in the middle of a big project, you're simply going to go based on clocked hours and pay them base pay for those hours. Even if they're just almost done the job, you don't know if they're going to be finished the job, even if it's a few more hours from completion on the next Monday that the pay period starts. You've got to make sure that if a pay period ends, that you only pay them base pay for what they were on the job site for, and their performance dollars will be reflected on the following paycheck. Now, you can get around this issue by simply making sure that as long as you have 1 week or 3 or 4 or 5 day projects, try to get those bigger projects started, scheduled, to get started on the days right after a new pay period. That way you have 2 full weeks to make sure you get those projects done, completed, and P4P can be ran on those projects without going over into another pay period. So really, that's all you really need to know for P4P, but these are the kind of the fine print. The back side of this 2-page document is kind of the fine print, and the quantity we've already talked about with P4P. The faster you go, the more money you make. Now we've got to have the quality side. We've got to make sure that things are taken care of, the customer's taken care of, the quality of the job is still upheld. So first and foremost, equipment maintenance time or non-billable hours will be paid to the employee at base pay. So for example, we sharpen blades, we do shop work, we pull weeds around the shop, we trim the bushes around the shop, we help clean up the office, whatever it is, those extra things are going to be paid out at base pay as a manual adjustment inside the software. We'll talk about the software side of things and manual adjustments in a different video, but all your employees need to realize here is that when they're at the job, they're making money on P4P. When they come back to the shop or they're helping do things that are non-billable, there's no more revenue being generated, they need to be able to have a clipboard where they put in what they did, the time that they spent doing that, and then you can sign off on that and add it onto their daily P4P. Number 2 is that there's a $50 cash bonus for new customer referrals that accept any landscape or mowing estimate. Again, insert your industry here. This is our example. The name, address, and phone number are required of the potential client. So they can't just be like, oh yeah, Bob's neighbor, he needs his lawn mowed. They've got to get the name, address, and phone number of the potential client. A $10 gift card will be given if an existing customer accepts an estimate that is initiated by a team member. So in our case, if someone is mowing a lawn and they let the office know, say, hey, this person needs a weeding visit, and they take some pictures and send it to the office sends that estimate to the client accepts, they're gonna get a $10 gift card because they upsold an existing customer. The $50 cash bonus is for new customers. The $10 bonus, the $10 gift card that we give out is for existing customers that we upsell more services to. Again, the goal here, to get your employees to think like owners so that when they're out in the field, they are actually marketing tools. They're looking for new work. They're trying to upsell existing customers. That's the goal here, is to have them thinking like owners. And $50, I'd much rather pay my employee $50 than I would pay Google or Facebook or some ad campaign to get new customers. I'd rather give this money to my employees so that they can be incentivized to grow the business and think like owners when they're out in the field. Number 3 is yellow slips. Again, yellow slips are created anytime there is a damage case on the property or a callback on the property, and we'll make another video specifically about yellow slips and manual adjustments. But when it comes to the yellow slips, if the guilty team member, if they make a mistake, they are the ones who have to go back to the job. If they were on the job site and the customer calls and complains, they've got to go back. If an alternate team member has to fix the job or go back and make the customer happy, they will be paid by the hour at base pay, and that will be deducted from the guilty team member. Yellow slips will be recorded on employee profiles. Again, we'll make another video about manual adjustments and about yellow slips, but again, important for quality to be upheld. 4th, damaged property. Damage case will be recorded on the employee profile. Cost of damages can be removed from the performance dollars, anything above base pay, which in our case is $18 an hour, on a given pay period. The base pay will still be honored and money cannot be withdrawn from multiple pay periods. That says a lot right there. First and foremost, you can only take away the performance dollars. You cannot take away base pay dollars. That's why we want our employees to be above base pay, so they actually have performance dollars on the table at all times if they do a poor job. If employees are hitting base pay all the time, there's no incentive for them to take extra care or be concerned about a yellow slip because there's no performance dollars on the table. So the other thing is, notice here, it says cannot be withdrawn from multiple pay periods. I don't want somebody to break a window, for example, accidentally, cost $300 to fix, and they have $200 of performance dollars in their paycheck. I'm going to take the $200 from this paycheck. I am not going to take the remainder 100 out of their next paycheck. The reason you don't want to do this is you don't want to demotivate and de-incentivize employees if they know that they're already going to hit base pay no matter what, because 3 weeks ago, 5 months ago, I made a damage case and I'm still paying it off. You'll demotivate you, demotivate your team. They will not like P4P. They will be the one that's dragging the team down because they have no incentive to be fast. As long as there's a little bit of pain and they have to have that one paycheck where their performance dollars are affected, as long as that happens once, it's enough for them to slow down, think about quality, make sure the customer's happy before they leave the property. This will incentivize caution and care on customer and company property and equipment. So if someone breaks or damages customer property, their performance dollars are on the table. If they damage, because of negligence, a truck, a piece of equipment, tool from the company, and it's because of negligence, it's also going to be deducted from their performance dollars. Now, these next 3 things we really don't have to use very often, but your specific industry, you might add some of these based upon, again, making sure that tools and equipment are taken care of and that quality is upheld. So, for example, number 5, quality control for weeding or mowing. If weeding or mowing service is skimped on, the office can take away the pay from the team member that performed service in prior visits and give it to the person that has to spend more time to get the property to an appropriate standard. So this is going to be relevant if you have any sort of work that is maintenance and recurring, where you spend 30, 40 minutes at the customer's property every couple weeks. Well, if someone comes along and they look and like, my goodness, it's only supposed to take me 30 minutes. I only have half a budgeted hour to do this service, but it's going to take me 3 hours because it's all overgrown, or because whatever is going to take me way longer than expected, and you go back in time and realize the last 5 visits, people have spent 5 or 6 minutes instead of 30, you all of a sudden realize that they've been skimping on this service, and that the money from those employees should go to the employee that had to today spend 3 hours on the property to get it back to the appropriate standard. So again, this should not be required a lot, but it's needs to be said if you have any sort of recurring work that could potentially be skimped on just to go faster. You need the ability to go back in people's paycheck and take away from this pay period's performance dollars because of past issues and skimping that they've done, and give it to the person that actually spent the time on the job. Number 6, tools and equipment. You want to set up the crew after you for success. Failing to organize tools or properly end the day on your truck or equipment may result in a deduction if the crew after you has to pick up your slack. These deductions will be resolved and decided by, insert your name here, owner manager. So again, a way to ensure that they actually take time at the end of the day to make sure their truck, their equipment is organized back to the shop and not just like thrown in there simply because, hey, we're getting paid on performance. I can just go as fast as I can on the jobs and I get to the shop, it doesn't matter because I don't have yellow slips. No, there's consequences, and we've before deducted $20 from everyone on our entire team in the form of a yellow slip simply because there was way too much trash in the trucks and they weren't wiping them down. Therefore, that was a deduction on everyone's paycheck because the tools and equipment were not set up for the success of the following crew. Again, number 7, gray areas. Any debate between team members on how much commission should go to who will be settled by owner or manager, and their decision and allocation of funds will be final. Now on this document, we also talk about profit sharing as well as other programs like open book management potentially that you might show during your interview process and on the onboarding process. We'll talk more about profit sharing down the road, and you should definitely check out the book P4P, which goes into much more detail about creating a profit sharing program to keep your employees incentivized and making sure that even once they achieve high P4P, if the company's making lots of profits, they get a piece of that action. So check out the book for more details on profit sharing and setting up that program for your frontline staff as well as your managers.